Azerbaijan Crisis presentation by Joshua Morar, Jack Nidiffer, and Anthony. Azerbaijan Crisis occurred from 1945 to 1946 at the end of World War II and resulted from continual placement of troops and activity from the USSR to spread their ideals and gain a new proxy nation in the Middle East. This occurred in the most northern part of Iran, called Azerbaijan, and led to the UN and the US having to get involved and have the removal of Soviet troops. The Soviet Union used this area to try to gain a new proxy nation and gain access to the Middle East oil and other natural resources that this key area held. It was also to cement its power over the U.S. and how many proxy nations they had and how far they could spread communism.
As the regional expert, I examined the internal dynamics of the proxy country, key locations, and the setting. To give a little bit of a background, the Soviet Union and United Kingdom were occupying Iran to get oil supplies and supply lines during World War II. In January of 1942, they created the Tripartite Treaty, which was then signed, which pledged Allied withdrawal of troops within 6 months after the war's end. In September of 1945, the Soviet Union refused to withdraw troops from northern Iran, which violated the Tripartite Treaty. In November of 1945, Saeed Hafar Pesharavi, leader of the Azerbaijan Democratic Party, established the Azerbaijan People's Government in Tabriz with the Soviet support. With this, Ahmed Qavam becomes the new Prime Minister of Iran. After his new role as Prime Minister of Iran in February of 1946, he then travels to Moscow to negotiate the Soviet troop withdrawal. After a little going back and forth with the Soviet Unions, on March 24, 1946, the Soviet Union announced plans to withdraw forces within 6 weeks of Iran territory. On June 13th of 1946, the Azerbaijan People's Government agrees to dissolve, which then integrates into Iran's administrative structure. Post-war, in December 1946, Iranian forces re-entered Tabriz and Mashhad, which restored the central government control of Iran. With this affected many citizens who were unsure who truly ruled their country. In Azerbaijan, citizens were forced to show loyalty to Pesharavi's new regime, which many others feared punishment if they resisted the Soviets. Problems with this included families were divided over whether to support the new Soviet movement or remain loyal to the Shah.
My job as the impact assessor was to figure out the short-term consequences, which were within 2 to 5 years of the incident, the long-term consequences, which were within 7+ years of the incident, and the modern consequences, which were any time past, I'd say 10 years. The short-term consequences of this were that Iran regained its control over its northern territory in Taibaz, which was where Soviet powers and the groups that it had empowered, such as the Azerbaijan's People Government and the Kurdish Republic of Mahadbad, were in control. They also began to have extreme distrust for the Soviet Union. It pushed Iran closer to the United States and Britain for protection and made an early Cold War alignment, which Iran ended up being used as a proxy nation for a couple years by the United States. Globally, it showed how quickly post-war connections and allies were breaking down and helped set the stage for the Truman Doctrine that would come and the U.S. policy of anti-communism. The long-term consequences were the deepened divide between the West and the Soviet bloc, which shaped Middle Eastern politics for decades and even to this day. It also encouraged superpowers to both compete for influence in the region because of the high amounts of oil and other natural resources that were fundamental to keeping a country working. It also led to the 1953 CIA-backed coup in Iran, which led to the assassination of the Shah, the previous Shah, and an installment of a new one. This crisis planted the early roots of mistrust towards foreign powers in Iranian politics and distrust for the West and all foreign nations. The modern ripples would be the fact that we still see events like this happen to this day. Iran has a deep distrust for the West and Russia, well, more for the West. They hold high value towards their natural resources, such as oil and energy control and weapons of mass destruction. It also led to more regional independence movements and instability in the area. Similar patterns can be seen in Ukraine and the Caucasus, and even more recently, we can think of Georgia and the war that happened there, which is just another demonstration of Russian and American powers coming to conflict, especially Russian in that case.